And now I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Madam President. We thank USG Rosemary DiCarlo for the briefing on developments in the Syrian Arab Republic. We have also carefully listened to the head of the Syria's Bright Future Organization, Hala Al-Gawi, and Amira Kulani, Families for Freedom. Our Western colleagues' initiative to convene today's Security Council meeting is something that is of surprise to us, and the thoughts it elicits are not the most positive ones. Instead of trustworthy information, we are once again hearing speculations on the basis of unverified and extremely non-objective data regarding the situation in Syria, and the sources of that information have been proven to be lying on several occasions already. We see such steps to exacerbate the situation and distort the situation in Syria and around it as part of an attempt to continue to hinder the political process in that country. I'll be frank, we were very disappointed by the statements of our esteemed, primarily Western colleagues. Since the United States and states supporting them have initiated this meeting on this topic, we expected them today to finally provide us with information on the situation on the de facto occupied territory of Syria. What are the laws governing the lives of people there? How is justice being carried out? This is all highly questionable. In whose interests are large armed groups being prepared and law enforcement bodies, if they can even be called that? How many people are detained and missing there? Unfortunately, we did not receive any explanations of that today. The information that we are receiving from human rights organizations, however, is horrifying, quite frankly. We have repeatedly stated that it is unacceptable to politicize humanitarian human rights issues. However, we are once again hearing accusations only against one of the parties, the official authorities in Damascus, while outright terrorists, which, let me recall you, have introduced the practice of public executions and torture in that country, are being presented as innocent victims. We are convinced that instead of all this, the international community should, not in words but in action, be helping Syria recover after a most Syrian crisis, which incidentally was fanned and exacerbated from without, including by those who now express concern over this humanitarian situation in that country. However, this action must not take the form of fanning the flames of scandal, but rather through consistently strengthening government bodies, the justice system, and assisting economic recovery and repairing broken links between people in the country. Madam President, allow me to inform you that on August 1st and 2nd in Nur Sultan, the 13th International Meeting on Syria in the Astana format took place. As you are aware, as part of that process, we have a successfully functioning working group on abductees, detainees, and missing persons, which is composed of Russia, Iran, Turkey, as well as UN and ICRC experts. This is a unique mechanism which has demonstrated its effectiveness in restoring trust between Syrian parties. Last week, on July 31st, the fourth operation to liberate detainees took place, and an exchange of prisoners was carried out 14 to 15. Thus, the total number of persons freed, thanks to this Astana working group, has exceeded 110 persons. Previously, such operations have taken place in November 2018, February, and April 2019. In addition, it is important to remember that there is a common practice of local exchange of prisoners in Syria, which takes place nearly daily. The group is also focused on the issue of missing persons. We are presently, together with UN and ICRIC experts, developing procedures and modalities for compiling a database of persons considered to be missing by the Syrian government and the opposition, as well as for further actions in this area. At the same time, we must remember that these issues are extremely sensitive, and we count that our Security Council partners are also aware of the fact that this is a humanitarian issue that should not be publicized and especially politicized. We have serious concerns that taking this issue up in the Security Council could have the opposite effect, and it could disrupt the very complex process of establishing trust between the parties to the conflict. And we would hope that no one is interested in such a negative development. We would also like to insistently ask our Western colleagues who are supporting the armed Syrian opposition to help the international community find out what happened to the thousands of people that were being forcibly held by militants in eastern Ghouta, Homsa, and in the southwest of Syria, which are currently reported as missing. And these are questions that obviously should not be addressed to Damascus. All those present here, as well as any interested organizations, have had the opportunity to familiarize themselves with the latest OCHA reports on the humanitarian situation in Syria. The maps marked locations where humanitarian activity is being carried out, both on an international as well as a domestic Syrian level. So the area beyond the Euphrates River is a blank spot on the map, and not because everything is fine there. The opposite. The northeast is in ruins. According to information from our military, more than 300 terrorist acts took place in June and July alone, and this is not even to mention that according to Western NGOs, only in the first quarter of 2019, as a result of mass coalition airstrikes in Deir ez-Zor province, more than 1,200 people died, primarily civilians. The IDP camp in Rugban remains in a complex situation. However, thanks to the efforts of the Russian Center for the Reconciliation of Warring Parties and the Syrian government, more than 17,000 persons have been able to leave Rukban. We will continue to work with the UN to address the issue of refugees' return and ensuring that they have everything they need. Regarding the Al-Hol camp, the situation there is truly catastrophic. Half the people there are women and children. If preserving the status quo there and spreading jihadist ideology are not goals in and of themselves, then it is high time to consider transmitting that territory to Syrian authorities in order to address the IDP issue. Honestly speaking, for the time being, however, we are under the impression that the Al-Hol camp, where 11 out of 73,000 residents are foreign citizens, and the jails in the northwest that are not under Damascus control are just one big concentration camp. Madam President, we are equally concerned by the situation in the Al-Tanf area. Regarding all of the territories that have been listed, we would like to once again recall that the occupying power bears responsibility for the population on the occupied territories in accordance with the Geneva Conventions. To conclude, I would like to separately underscore and emphasize that although we do listen to our U.S. colleagues regarding the humanitarian and human rights aspects on the situation in Syria, this doesn't mean that the ongoing illegal American military presence in that country has any legitimacy in the eyes of Syrians or the international community. From the conflicting statements of American leadership, it would seem that ISIL is defeated in Syria, and combating ISIL was the initial goal, as was announced, for American presence there. However, the continuing presence makes us think that there are other goals which are not in line with the principles of respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Syrian Arab Republic. On its part, Russia will continue providing the necessary assistance to Syrians in overcoming the difficulties they face in arriving agreements regarding a political settlement, as well as in the humanitarian and post-conflict recovery spheres. And we will be doing this both nationally as well as in multilateral formats in cooperation with interested parties. We call on all positive forces to join those efforts. Thank you.
Thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement.